This is 70s Sitcom Flashback, the show that looks back at the sitcoms that defined the 1970s. Your hosts are Robbie and Terry, both 15. Every week they break it down so you actually get it.
The show that looks back at the sitcoms that defined the 1970s. I'm Terry.
And I'm Robbie, and today we're talking about Sanford and Son, the junkyard show that somehow became one of the greatest comedies ever made.
If you haven't seen it, picture this. A grumpy old junk dealer in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles, always scheming, always complaining, always hilarious.
That's Fred G. Sanford, played by the legendary Redd Foxx, and the G stands for genius, at least according to Fred.
Fred's long-suffering son, Lamont, was played by Demond Wilson, and together they made this incredible odd couple out of a father and son who drove each other absolutely crazy.
The show premiered on NBC in January of 1972, and it was an instant smash hit.
And here's the cool origin story. It was actually based on a British sitcom called Steptoe and Son about a rag-and-bone man and his son in London.
Norman Lear and Bud Yorkin brought it to America and made it something totally fresh and distinctly black. The setting, the humor, the characters, everything felt real and specific.
That specificity was huge. The show was set in Watts, which had real meaning after the 1965 Watts riots, and the writers didn't pretend that history didn't exist.
But it wasn't a heavy show. It was genuinely, side-splittingly funny, and Fred Sanford was one of the all-time great comedy characters.
His fake heart attacks, every time he didn't get his way, Fred would clutch his chest and cry out to his late wife, Elizabeth.
"You hear that, Elizabeth? I'm coming to join you, honey." That catchphrase became iconic almost immediately.
Redd Foxx had been a stand-up comedian for decades before this, mostly on the so-called Chitlin circuit, performing for black audiences who mainstream television had basically ignored.
This show changed that. By its second season, Sanford and Son was the number 2 rated show on all of American TV.
Number 2, behind only All in the Family, which was also a Norman Lear production. The man was basically running TV in the 1970s.
What's wild is that both shows dealt with race and generation gaps, but in totally opposite ways. Archie Bunker was a bigot, and Fred Sanford was the fast-talking, lovable schemer.
And both shows trusted their audiences to handle complicated, messy characters without everything being wrapped up neatly at the end.
The chemistry between Fox and Wilson was electric, they argued. They made up, they drove each other crazy, and you totally believed they loved each other.
LaWanda Page played Aunt Esther, Fred's sister-in-law, and their insult battles were some of the most perfectly timed comedy exchanges of the entire decade.
Fred calling Esther an old heifer and Esther firing back with scripture. That was appointment TV every single week.
The show also featured a terrific supporting cast: Grady, Bubba, Julio next door, and later Aunt Esther's husband, Woodrow, all incredibly well-drawn characters.
Now, here's where things get complicated. Redd Foxx left the show in 1974 to do a variety show on ABC, and the producers had to scramble.
They created a spin-off called the Sanford Arms and another called Grady, and honestly, neither one really worked without that central dynamic.
Fox came back in 1976, which saved everything, though by then Demond Wilson had also departed, so it became Sanford and Company for a stretch.
Television in the 70s was genuinely brave about this stuff. Networks let shows completely reinvent themselves mid-run, rather than just canceling them.
The show finally ended its original run in 1977, giving it about 6 seasons of television that people are still watching today.
Because it holds up. The comedy is tight, the performances are incredible, and Redd Foxx specifically is just operating at a level that very few comedic performers ever reach.
He could do more with a raised eyebrow and a sideways glance than most actors can do with a full monologue.
The show was also groundbreaking in terms of representation. A black-led, black-centered comedy on primetime network television was genuinely rare in 1972.
And it didn't try to make the characters palatable or safe for white audiences by stripping away their culture. It celebrated exactly who these characters were.
Norman Lear has said that the goal was always just to make people laugh while also making them think, and Sanford and Son absolutely did both.
The theme song is also one of the most recognizable in television history. That funky bass line by Quincy Jones just instantly puts you in the mood.
Quincy Jones, the man composed that theme, and it's pure 1970s joy in about 30 seconds of music.
The show's legacy is enormous. You can draw a direct line from Sanford and Son to basically every black family comedy that came after it.
The Cosby Show, Martin, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Blackish, they all owe something to the door that Fred and Lamont kicked open.
And Red Fox himself became a superstar, finally getting the mainstream recognition that his decades of stand-up comedy had absolutely earned him.
He was already in his 50s when the show premiered, which is a reminder that it is never too late to become a television legend.
If you've never sat down with Sanford and Son, do yourself a favor this weekend, start with season 1 and try not to have a great time.
You will absolutely not succeed at not having a great time. It is too funny. Fred Sanford will not allow you to remain unentertained.
That's our look at Sanford and Son, one of the sharpest, funniest, most important sitcoms the 1970s ever produced. See you next week on 70s Sitcom Flashback.